Hello, and welcome to Ms. Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Ms. Peepers. Let's talk about books. Today's topic is one of my absolute favorite fantasy series, and that is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. And we're specifically talking about the Tiffany Aching books within that series. Discworld is a fantasy satire series of 41 novels, published between 1983 and 2015, 1 year before the author's death. It's broken up into sub-series that follow different groups of characters. There are 5 books in the Tiffany Aching series that follow a young witch from age about 9 through her late teens. These are the Discworld novels that were directed specifically towards children and young adults, and that makes them a little bit different from the other books, but not so much that an adult can't enjoy them. In the first book, The Wee Free Men, we're introduced to Tiffany Aching, whose younger brother is kidnapped by elves and taken into fairyland. So she decides that she's going to go after him. And this is where she learns that she has magical abilities. She also meets the Wee Free Men, otherwise known as the Nakmak-Feegle, who are also from fairyland, but now live in the Discworld realm. The Nakmak-Feegle are 6-inch tall blue men who love to fight and love to drink and are probably not great companions for a 9-year-old, but they're what she's got. And so they help her rescue her brother from fairyland. In book 2, A Hatful of Sky, Tiffany starts her witch training. She learns that there are different ways to approach magic. There are different ways that witches express their magic. And she also learns that it's really hard work. But during her apprenticeship, she is possessed by an otherworldly being and has to figure out who she is, find her true self, and center to it in order to cast the thing out before it does too much damage in her name. Book 3 is called Wintersmith. In a ritual gone wrong, the spirit of winter manifests on the disc, and Tiffany goes on a quest to find the spirit of spring so that the land does not get frozen forever. In book 4, I Shall Wear Midnight, the walls between the Discworld and fairyland are weakening, and the elves are back with a vengeance. Tiffany needs all of her allies to fight off the invasion. Before I get into why I love these books so much, I do want to make one note about content warnings. Even though these are books written for children, Pratchett never shied away from difficult topics. He believed in speaking truthfully to children and not pretending that they don't know things exist that they can observe themselves. So there are difficult topics in here such as sexism and violence and child and elder neglect that are addressed in an age-appropriate way, but still are very much there. So always, as with every book, check content warnings if you need to, and look after yourself. I adore the Discworld novels. They are hilarious, they are satirical. Even though it is humorous, it is also in some ways serious. And that mix is really interesting to me. The world and the stories feel real because they are rooted in our world, in reality, even though it's a fantasy setting, even though there's magic and vampires and werewolves and all sorts of different types of supernatural creatures. It's still very, very real. And Pratchett also loved to play with words and also different languages. And even in his books aimed towards children, where you can see a difference in the types of jokes that he makes, the types of puns or plays on words that he does. They are more considerate of a younger audience. I find myself looking up at least one word in every single book, including the ones aimed towards children. And so that is something that just brings an extra layer of depth and an extra feeling of learning in these books. Witchcraft in the Discworld novels is about more than just doing magic. Witches can do magic, but they are healers, they are carers for their community, they are midwives, they prepare bodies for burial, they check on people who are too sick or elderly to care for themselves fully. They make sure that the community takes care of itself as well. They are a moral center, and they make those difficult decisions that a lot of people would rather not make or rather not acknowledge exist. And witches also look after each other. They are solitary. They prefer to be on their own. There's a running joke that a group of witches is not called a coven, but rather an argument, because they have different styles and different ways of viewing things, and they each have their own community or steading that they take care of. But they look after each other, they check in on each other, and they prevent what they call cackling. So, building a gingerbread house and shoving children into the oven, not turning towards dark magic. So with this in mind, these stories have really serious themes around caring for the community, around helping people who can't help themselves, around stepping in where no one else wants to. Tiffany has to learn how to accept responsibility for her community and to step forward and show that she can be independent, but also be willing to accept help when she needs it. She has to balance that independence in that community to gain the respect of her fellow witches and the people that she serves, and also take care of herself. There's a lesson there for all of us. Tiffany also, because these are coming of age novels essentially, Tiffany is finding herself. She's understanding where she fits in society. She's understanding how she can continue traditions that make sense to her and that are relevant and that are serving her in her community, but also making changes where it makes sense, acknowledging that things don't have to stay the same just because they've always been that way. And at the core of it, witches stand on the edges between life and death, between this realm and other realms, and they protect the people around them. They have to truly care for their community. Tiffany has to learn that while there are dark and evil forces, and they're not all supernatural, there's also goodness, and she can champion that goodness and set an example for the people around her. Doing the right thing is often the harder choice, and it may even be the unpopular choice, but that's not an excuse not to do it. One of the things that really brings all of these books alive is the characters. The characters learn and grow, they affect one another. Even though you can read these books really in any order, they can stand alone. They also are a whole. And so if you follow the characters between the books, you see how they change and you see how events affect them. Tiffany Aching herself is a favorite character of mine, which might seem obvious, but the protagonist is not always my favorite character. I'm sure other people feel the same way. But Tiffany has that strength and that determination, but is also flawed, and she doesn't just sail through what's going on. She has to learn how to get stronger. You see that progression, and you see that she truly cares. And sometimes she gets frustrated, and sometimes she gets angry, and sometimes she just doesn't want to do the thing that she should be doing. And we can all relate to that. But she pushes herself and she holds herself to a high standard and always strives to meet it. Granny Weatherwax is also a favorite character of mine, and she is not just in these novels, but she's also in the Witches series within Discworld. Granny is a senior witch. She is considered a leader of witches in a group that does not have an official leader. She's been a witch for decades, and she takes an interest in Tiffany and mentors her in her own way. Granny has a lot of power that she uses sparingly and uses when she needs it. She is very good at magic, but again, because witches aren't just about the magic, she only uses it when she needs it. And my third favorite character is Letitia Keepsake. Letitia is the daughter of nobles. She is essentially your fairy tale princess, but she also has magical abilities. She is also at her core a witch, but doesn't want to acknowledge it. Letitia believes that the blonde, blue-eyed, wealthy daughter could not possibly be a witch. That's just not what the fairy stories say. When Letitia marries the Baron, she leans fully into that noble lifestyle, even though she has those abilities, which frustrates Tiffany because she can see the potential within Letitia. But Letitia has to come around to that decision herself. And eventually, when the time comes that Letitia is needed and truly has to perform witchcraft, she can, and she does. Letitia eventually needs to decide whether she wants to buck the trend and do her own thing. Overall, this is just such a fabulous series that I wish I'd had when I was younger, but I'm so glad to have read them as an adult. Regardless of your age, really anyone can enjoy these books, and so I hope you do as well. Have you read any of the Discworld books? If so, tell me in the comments what your favorites are. And either way, let me know, what are you reading next? This is Penny. Come on, Penny. You gonna let me film? You gonna let mommy film?